Yeah, so I'd like to invite anybody who'd like to start us off with the first question, which is, what does self-empathy mean to you? And I will keep the time.
Can I just give a quick context here, just in case Sushila's not
Sorry.
familiar with what?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, Dwayne is here. Great. Colin is also here.
Hi, everyone.
Colin.
Hi.
Dwayne. Welcome.
I was on mute. I'm talking. And hey, Dwayne. Hey, Colin. Glad you could both make it. Let me just give a quick context to what we're doing. We're working on a new training cohort, and it's a training. We're developing a workshop on defining empathy, and that's the link to it. I just put it in. And we have a group that is working on this, and Priyanka is working on the aspect of empathy, of self-empathy. And she's developing one session on the topic of self-empathy. So she's going to hold some empathy circles on the topic, just to kind of hear from people and kind of explore the topic. And I did put the link into where we're developing the training. It's definingempathy.com/workshop, and you can check that out later. And you were just saying that you want to start the empathy circle. We have an hour and a half. Do you want to explain it? I just posted the question in there, Priyanka.
Yeah. So we thought if you have any better suggestions, please let us know. But I thought that we have 1.5 hours, so we can spend equal time on each of the questions. So we divide that into 40 minutes each, and then towards the end, like a 5 to 7 minutes of a harvest and a summary of what we've spoken about. And the project that I'm working on, I'm focusing on self-empathy, and what I found in the literature is that self-empathy often gets mixed up with self-compassion and etc. So when we are trying to promote the empathy circle, it becomes difficult to explain to people because we don't have a working definition of what it means to us. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to come up with a definition of what it means to us in the context of the circle. And so the first question, Edwin, shall we start off? I don't think there'll be many more people coming. So
I think we're ready.
Yeah, okay. So I'll be keeping the time. All of us are experienced in the circle, so I'll not go through the instructions, but is there somebody who would like to kick us off with the first question? How do you define self-empathy? Would someone like to volunteer to be the first speaker?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Sushila.
Oh, how much time do we have?
Activist?
Turns? 5 minutes.
5 minutes each. Is that okay, Edwin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's interesting you said the difference between self-empathy and self-compassion. So I'm not sure I'm gonna, this is what I think it is. And this, I didn't study it just because I wanted not to just give you textbook stuff. So, all right. So in self-empathy.
Sushila, would you like to pick an active listener first?
Oh, we're gonna do it with the empathy circle model. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. This is good. Sure. How about Dwayne? Hi, Dwayne.
Hi.
I've worked with you before, so yeah.
Happy to be your listener.
I don't know. Do you want to repeat back already what I said? Or
can we start over?
okay. I thought it was interesting that is it Priyanka? Priyanka said that there's a difference between self-empathy and self-compassion. So I didn't read the literature or anything about it because I didn't want to just repeat back what I read. So what I feel about it is in self-empathy, it's kind of tuning into how I'm feeling in the moments, so that I can listen to whether I need attention. So that might be self-compassion, but and then letting myself know that I'm safe, I'm okay. So I'm not sure I know exactly what self-empathy is. But okay, I stopped there.
Okay. As you were explaining to Priyanka earlier, you made it a point to not do any research or look up any definitions of what self-empathy might be, um, because you didn't want to just give a book definition. Um, and she drew the distinction between self-empathy and like self-compassion and stuff. And so you're not sure about what you were going to say, but you wanted to just speak directly. And your definition is that self-empathy is like this idea of you being in touch with your own feelings and being aware of how you're feeling and how things are affecting you. And I missed the last part.
That's pretty good. I don't remember it either. uh, so
Can I
yeah,
ask you to remember to pause in between your
yeah, a little bit more,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, so thinking about more self-empathy, I would say that I would also try to repeat to myself what I'm actually think I'm experiencing, or if I have a what I said, if that's what I really so I can listen to what I'm actually saying or feeling.
when you're thinking about self-empathy, for you it's more about having an awareness about what you're saying and feeling, and thinking about that and wondering if that's really what you wanted to communicate.
Yeah. And hearing that back, sometimes there's something deeper underneath, so I can ask myself, well, what is it, go tell me more about what's going on here.
And reflecting back on what you shared earlier, um, you're thinking about it on even a different level, meaning self-empathy for you is really thinking deeply about what you communicated and having an understanding with yourself as to whether or not that's really your intention, is knowing that that's what you really wanted to communicate.
Yeah, and I think that what thinking about having self-empathy kind of gives me more time to reflect or pause on what I'm thinking or saying, so that um, like I'm actually paying attention to what I'm saying.
Having self-empathy, in summary, is for you is really about paying attention, having an awareness, paying attention about what you're saying as you're saying it.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you. And um, now I will speak about self-empathy, and I will pick someone. Larry, would you like to be my listener?
Happy to, Dwayne. Ready.
It's interesting for me. I also, similar to Sheila, I didn't do any research on this idea of self-empathy.
So Dwayne, I'm hearing you say initially, it's interesting And then you said, for me, for yourself, you also didn't do any, I think you said research on this particular topic.
Yes, because I thought that in my mind, the idea of self-empathy was relatively obvious for me.
And then, Dwayne, I hear you saying that for you, it was already evident, it was self-evident, it was already obvious what self-empathy means for you.
Yeah, because for me, self-empathy is also tied into my self-awareness, my self-esteem, because I view the world the way I feel about myself through that lens.
So I think you're saying kind of for you, your definition of self-empathy is how you see yourself and how you see the world through that lens of self-empathy, something like that.
Yeah, my self-esteem provides me with the capacity to experience self-empathy.
And it's your self-esteem that gives you the capacity to experience self-empathy.
Yeah, so if I'm feeling good about who I am, I have a greater capacity to feel self-empathy, to be present, to have this awareness of how I'm experiencing things.
So I'm hearing you say that if you feel good about yourself, then this gives you kind of the foundation for seeing everything else.
Yes, and so if I'm not feeling good about myself, if I don't have a positive sense of self, my capacity to be self-empathetic is reduced or may not even be present.
And I'm hearing you say that if you don't have a positive view about yourself, then your capacity to have kind of empathy for anyone else is reduced or diminished or maybe completely eliminated.
Yes, and so for me, when I'm involved in participating in an empathy circle, it's really important for me to pause for a moment or two before I enter the circle and do a self-check.
So Joanne, I'm hearing you say that for you, before you enter an empathy circle, it's important to pause, do a self-check before entering the circle.
Yeah, and be mindful, yes.
To pause, and not only pause, but to actually be mindful or kind of aware of what's going on, what's alive in you, kind of.
Yes. And when I'm able to do that, to pause and to reflect and to think about myself first and how I'm feeling and what's, important to me and why I'm here, I can be more empathetic when I'm involved in the empathy circles.
And by pausing and getting in touch with yourself, then you can use that awareness to kind of use that foundation of awareness to be empathic with everyone in the group, something like that.
Yes, and so for me, self-empathy really is about having a connection with myself, being mindful and being aware of who I am, how I'm feeling before entering into a conversation or interaction with someone else and during the conversation with someone else.
So Dwayne, I'm hearing you say that for you, self-empathy is being aware of what's alive in you before you enter into a conversation with someone else.
Yes. Thank you, Larry. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Dwayne. Colin, will you be my listener?
Sure, Larry.
Thank you, Colin. So I enjoying the conversation and the topic, and I made some little notes to myself. I wrote my little definition of self-empathy. I kind of made it up on the spot. I'll stop there.
Okay, so it sounds like you're having fun, you're enjoying how things are proceeding so far, and you are you're going to give us your definition of self-empathy without having thought about it before.
Thank you, Colin. And what I wrote down was unconditional acceptance of self and others and nature.
Mhm. Okay, so for you, it means self-acceptance, unconditional self-acceptance, or unconditional acceptance of self, of others, and of nature.
Exactly. And then what came was being aware of any blocks to empathy for self and others and nature.
Mhm. And also this awareness of any blocks that might be there is important.
Yes. So this kind of being in the now, so to speak, is an awareness of it all.
Mhm. So by being really present here and now gives us this awareness of everything.
Right. And that might be a joyful awareness.
Mm. And it could be that it's a positive experience.
And I would add that when it is a joyful experience, that's kind of a shared joy.
Okay. So it's not joy that you hold within yourself. It's a joy that you share with others.
Yes. And there might be a concern in awareness.
Okay. So there might be concern and awareness.
And when that concern is shared, it becomes a shared concern.
Okay. But by sharing this concern, then it's not just with you.
Right. So that's kind of touching on the topic of, I just lost it. I lost the term. I think it's called contagion or contagious emotion. Emotional contagion, I think, was the term that has been used. An emotional contagion.
Hmm. Okay, so you're struggling to find the right term, but you've settled on the expression emotional contagion to describe this shared joy or shared concern.
And I'd like to differentiate emotional contagion from empathy.
Okay, so there's a difference between emotional contagion and empathy.
I would say that in empathy, I myself and each one who's practicing true empathy recognizes that they have agency.
Okay, so when you're practicing empathy, you have this agency or this power.
Yes. So you have responsibility for your, your own life experience.
Mm-hmm. So we're responsible for ourselves.
Right. And we have choices. We have free will. We have choices.
Mm. So there's choices. There's always choices.
Right. So the idea that someone else is the cause of my emotion is not taking responsibility.
Mm. But when we should be taking responsibility. It's not that someone else is responsible for how we feel.
Exactly. And if we ever blame someone outside of us, that's giving away our responsibility.
Mm. So Yes, we're giving away our responsibility and we're pushing it onto other people.
Exactly. And that's not fun.
Okay. So that's not that's not pleasant.
Right. There's no shared joy when it comes to blaming someone outside of us.
Okay. So then, yeah, it's not possible to share this experience of joy if we're playing the blame game.
So then we get to see that we're actually creating, in a sense, our experience based on the choices we're making.
Okay. So based on the choices that we're making, we are the creators of our own experience.
Thank you, Colin. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. I'll pick Edwin. Is that okay?
Listening.
So I've been working with Priyanka and with Edwin in this project to define empathy, and so I have thought about this a little beforehand.
Yeah, you're working with me and Priyanka on this topic, so you have some thoughts about it. You've been working. You have some working on it a bit.
Mm-hmm. Before recently, I never really thought about the term self-empathy. I'm familiar with empathy, and I'm familiar with self-compassion, but this is kind of new territory, and I'm finding it tricky to navigate.
You're familiar with empathy and with self-compassion, so this is a new area, and you're finding it tricky to really navigate this.
So I have a couple of ideas that I'd like to share. The first is that self-empathy is it's understanding what we're experiencing, and it's at an emotional level, a somatic level, and an intellectual level. And it's also about validating that experience to ourselves.
So you see that self-empathy is understanding oneself, and it's at a somatic level, and to give validation to that.
Not just somatic, but also on an emotional level and a mental level.
So it's mental and somatic.
I'm also doing an NVC course, and Priyanka is aware of this. And self-empathy is a topic that has come up this week. And there it's loosely defined as welcoming our judgments, feeling our feelings fully, and fully connecting to our needs.
And you're doing an NVC course, and they talk about it, self-empathy, and it's about I can't remember, there was one of it was it's tapping into one's feelings and needs,
right,
basically,
and also welcoming our judgments and seeing the wisdom in our judgments.
Yeah, and not suppressing judgments, but welcoming judgment and see the wisdom within the judgments.
And then when I think back to my training in self-compassion, I've come up with an idea of how self-empathy might be similar to that. And self-empathy could mean that we have this relationship with ourselves as if a similar relationship to a dear friend, and that we treat ourselves like we would a dear friend, especially if we're having a hard time.
So you're doing self-compassion. You've done self-compassion trainings, and you're sort of seeing how that overlaps with self-empathy in the sense that you treat yourself as you would treat a good friend.
So you know, there's different angles to come at this to define self-empathy, but I think at its heart, it's about connecting with ourselves on a deeper level and showing understanding for ourselves and doing good for ourselves.
So you're seeing that there's challenge with understanding self-empathy, but comes down to understanding ourselves. I think there's a bit more to it than that. But...
And connecting, really connecting with ourselves.
So it's understanding and really connecting with ourselves.
Right. I mean, and this connection is not just through our thoughts, it's also through our feelings and through our body.
Yeah, somebody just arrived, or just letting them in. So it's really connecting with ourselves, with our thoughts, and with our feelings.
Right, and our body.
And our
body experience.
Our body experience.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. We're just doing empathy circle, Ruth, and I'm going to speak to Priyanka. And the questions are, let me just put that in the chat. And that's it. So I'll speak to Priyanka. You're muted. Are you there, Priyanka, or did we lose you? Priyanka is in India, and sometimes her connection goes out. So, are you there, Priyanka? Okay, I'll speak to Sushila then. Hopefully Priyanka will come back. Oh, yeah, she dropped out. Yeah, I think this is a great topic, the self-empathy one. I hope we can popularize it like self-compassion was quite popularized by Kristen Neff. And so I hope we can popularize this self-empathy like that.
Yeah, so you're interested in if you can, this is an interesting topic, and possibly popularize it, self-empathy as along the lines that that Neff popularized self-compassion.
And my definition would be the feeling, sensing into self. So that's into one's own feelings and thoughts and feelings. So that's the core of my definition.
And your core definition is feeling and sensing into yourself is self-empathy.
Yeah. And I would say that if we wanted to compare it to like self-compassion, the concept of self-compassion, by definition, compassion is addressing suffering. And I see that as kind of a focus on the nature of suffering, whereas empathy is kind of a sensing into the full experience, like all experiences. So that's kind of a difference I see between compassion and empathy, that empathy is sensing joy and creativity and, as well as maybe negative, like painful feelings too. So it's that full spectrum of experience is what I see empathy being, and self-empathy.
Yeah, and if you were to compare self-compassion as being more of the self-compassion,
focus on
the
yeah.
suffering, and where self-empathy is more of the full spectrum from the positive joy and creativity expression, and as well as the things that are more painful or unpleasant.
Yeah, so for me, self-compassion would be a subset of self-empathy. And so that would be, yeah, just to put that in the context.
You went a little bit unclear in the video, so can you restate that,
Oh,
please?
yeah, I would just say that self-compassion is a subset of self-empathy. That's how I view it.
Oh, okay, I missed the word subset. So you feel that self-compassion is a subset of self-empathy.
And there's different practices that have talked about empathy, and as Colin has mentioned, NVC. So NVC is like sense into yourself for the feelings you have. Like we're working on this project, and some people said, "Oh, I feel confusion," right? So sensing the confusion about a definition. So that's the first thing. So, oh, I sense some confusion in my body.
So you're looking at the component of NVC as of sensing into your feelings and and then being with that, whatever you're feeling, you're giving it time to be expressed and felt and experienced.
And with NVC, nonviolent communication, has a process, based on empathy, that it's like you sense the confusion, and then you say, you sort of like ask, what are the needs? What is the feeling behind that? Like if I have confusion, I want the feeling of clarity, for example. And so that would be a need. And so they're saying there's feelings that you have and feelings basically that you desire that are behind the feelings that might be behind that you have. So sensing into oneself, saying, oh, I'm feeling confusion, and I really would like the feeling of clarity.
So using the methods or process of nonviolent communication, of sensing into what you're feeling, like confusion, and then actually okay, last part.
It's looking for the needs
Yeah,
behind that. So if
looking
you
for
have,
the needs,
yeah.
right. So once you sense into the feelings, then you look into what the needs are, and then the confusion might really be something else. And
Yeah, and the confusion, there's the feeling of confusion, but you want clarity. You have the desire for the feeling or the need of clarity. So that's
okay,
that's a big part of that process.
so sensing into the feelings of confusion, what you really are looking for or discovering is that you have a need for clarity.
Yep, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're up again, Sushila. Select your listener.
Are we going to go to the second question, or is this the
We
same
haven't
round?
had Priyanka or Ruth do the first question yet, so you might want to speak to one of them.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking, and Ruth is going to. I can ask Ruth to listen, or am I listening to Ruth? Okay. Do you want to have Ruth talk first?
No, you're the speaker.
Oh,
You
I'm
select
the
your
speaker.
listener.
Okay. I will select Ruth. Would you like to be my listener?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks.
Okay. So listening to everybody's explanations on self-empathy, I can see that I mentioned that it's a sensing into what or a listening for what I'm experiencing and feeling. And then I've gotten more clarity about self-empathy is also about having the ability to go deeper into what's really going on as far as what are my needs in the situation. what are those feelings telling me about my needs?
Yeah, so you've been listening to what other people have been saying, and it's so you kind of getting a sense that it's that self-empathy is feeling into your responses and getting some clarity on the needs underneath those feelings.
Yeah, and just like if I was having empathy for another person, self-empathy would be just allowing that space to to be okay with what's happening, and also responsible for choosing how I'm going to respond.
Yeah, so you're saying just as we would, or you would have empathy for another, you would do that for yourself, and choose your responses. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I would allow space for that for whatever's arising, and then have compassion, or no, I would be responsible for how I would feel and how I would react.
Yeah, so whatever comes up, you would accept it and take responsibility for it. Yeah, with compassion, self-compassion.
Can I be complete now? Do I have to keep going? Okay.
Whenever you're
All
ready.
right. I'll be complete now. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. So now, yeah. So now, can I ask Priyanka to be my listener, please?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. I'm getting the feeling you've already you've already discussed this quite thoroughly, so I hope I'm not going to repeat anything. Yeah, that's it.
So you have a feeling that we've discussed this thoroughly and you're hoping that you won't repeat anything.
But I probably will. So my thoughts on self-empathy. Yeah, it was interesting the distinction you made between that and self-compassion, because I thought I just assumed they were pretty much overlapping, but it's nice to have a stronger distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, so you thought that self-empathy and self-compassion were similar, but it's nice to have that distinction.
Yeah. So self-empathy can include, not suffering, just whatever's going on. And being in touch, from my point of view, staying in touch with how I'm feeling in response to what other people are saying, and also being a bit grounded with it as well, if that makes sense.
So self-empathy for you is being grounded as well as being in touch with what's going on within you so that you can respond to other people appropriately.
Yeah, I think just to sort of go a bit deeper with the staying in touch with what I'm feeling rather than letting my feelings focus entirely on the other person. So keeping a modicum of empathy for myself in the process. Yeah, because I can tend to sort of go out of myself rather than to kind of not notice the little messages I'm getting from myself.
Yeah, so you have a tendency to like go out of yourself and fully focus on the other person and not know what's going on within you. So self-empathy is also being in touch with yourself as well as the other person and listening to the other person.
Yes, yeah. And with that, accepting whatever's going on, you know, like if something I wasn't expecting or some unwanted emotion or confusing emotion, yeah, having the capacity to, I mean, it's a practice, isn't it? But to just say, just let that be, not try and push it away.
Yeah, so also accepting what's going on within you and not just pushing things away, being okay with whatever is happening.
Yes, yeah. And I like what Edwin said about actually recognizing if there's a need there. That's really important because yeah, there might be a strong need to do something completely different, you know, that, or I
Yeah,
can't
so
think of an example. Okay.
recognizing that there's a need there is really important.
Yeah, it could get overlooked. It's like, yeah, what's the point of self-empathy if we're just going to say, oh yeah, that's there, and not recognize that there might be a need? Even if we can't meet it, it's still good to pinpoint, oh, that's my value, that's my need. Yeah.
Yeah, because it could get overlooked. And it's really nice to just pinpoint and say, that's my need, that's what I need right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was just saying, you know, that it's actually, you can't leave that bit out, otherwise I don't think it would be completely self-empathy. Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
think so.
it wouldn't be self-empathy if you left that bit about the needs out.
Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Dwayne, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, self-empathy is life-saving.
For you, self-empathy, Priyanka, is life-saving.
I think if we can teach more people about self-empathy, we could save many lives.
Teaching more people about, for you, teaching more people about self-empathy would save lives.
Yeah. I'm from India, and in the traditional Indian education system, nobody in school ever taught me about self-empathy or listening to myself or understanding what I'm going through. We did hear a lot, like we had these moral education classes where we did hear a lot of preaching about be kind to others and give to others, but it never went the other way around. Like I never heard that growing up.
You were raised in the traditional Indian school in India, and there wasn't any mention about anything like empathy, self-awareness, about being in touch with your own feelings. You were educated on moral issues and being aware of moral concepts, but there was no mention about self and self-awareness and self-image and things of.
Yeah, I meant moral education in the sense of giving to others, being generous to others, listening to others. But I never heard anybody say be kind to yourself or listen to yourself. Yeah.
Okay, when you speak about moral education, it was more about giving to others, doing for others, listening to others, be kind to others, but there wasn't any emphasis on doing those things for yourself, being kind to yourself, listening to yourself.
Yeah. And I honestly grew up thinking that if I would do anything for myself, it was selfish.
The way you were raised, if you did something for yourself, if you focused on taking care of yourself, it was considered selfish or selfishness.
Yeah. And I'm an educator myself, and I interact with a lot of young people who are in the age group between like 18 to 22, and they've just become adults, but they don't know how to do adulting. I hope you understand what I mean. And I notice a lot of them have so many issues around self-esteem, and the education system in India is really hard. It's very competitive, and they have a very tough time dealing with their emotions because nobody ever taught them how to do it.
You're an educator and a really, as you described, challenging, tough Indian system. And as an educator, you work with a lot of young adults, 18 to 22, and they receive a really good education, but they're not very good at adulting, as you defined it, that being a responsible person, making healthy decisions for themselves. And there's a lot of issues with this group of people with around areas of self-esteem and making relate to more emotional health and things of that.
And many of them suffer from anxiety, depression. And so I think if we can teach them not just the empathy circle, but also self-empathy, we can save many lives from many people's lives by just living an empty life. Because when you really, for me, self-empathy is going inside yourself and understanding what you're going through without judgment. So if we can teach people how to do that, I think they could lead more fulfilling lives.
You also shared that in this age group, there's a lot of people are dealing with issues of anxiety and depression. I think you said suffered from these things, and really self-empathy is about going inside yourself and having awareness of self and where you're feeling, where you are. And it's your understanding or feeling that if you're able to teach people about self-empathy or not necessarily practicing empathy circles, but just having this idea of empathy and self-empathy would actually save lives in India.
Thank you, Dwayne. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Priyanka.
So Edwin, should we move on to the next question?
Sure, up to you. It's your time.
Okay. So I'm going to answer. So Dwayne, would you pick a list and answer the second question, please?
Sure. Let's see. Ruth, would you like to be my listener?
Yeah, hello, Dwayne. Yeah.
And so I'm going to answer the second question. What does self-empathy mean to me in the context of an empathy circle?
Oh, yes. So you're going to answer the question number 2. What does self-empathy mean in the context of an empathy circle?
Yes. And it's interesting because I actually addressed that in my first answer about what self-empathy means to me, but I'll reflect back on that.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, you addressed that in when you answered question 1, but you're going to reflect back on it.
Yes. For me, self-empathy and is really about having self-awareness, and it's tied to my self-esteem.
So for you, it's about having self-awareness, and it's, yeah, tied in with your self-esteem.
Yeah, and it for me, before I enter into an empathy circle space, it's really important that I take time to be reflective, to be mindful, to be present, and to make sure I'm feeling good about who I am.
Mm. So yeah, before you end, before you begin join an empathy circle, you you think it's really important to take some time to ground and reflect and be mindful about how you actually are, so that you feel present for the circle.
Yeah. And because it's my understanding that I'm going to experience this entire process through my self esteem.
Mm. So you're going to experience this whole process through the lens of your self-esteem.
Yeah. And so, in order for me to be able to have the capacity to share or to be empathic during the process, it's really important for me that I'm able to experience being self uh, empathic or experiencing self empathy.
Yeah. So yeah, in order for you to contribute and be present in the circle, it's really important that you are feeling self empathy for yourself before you go in. Yeah, like a preparation.
And I can give you an example. I have a mechanical heart valve, and I take blood thinners um, for every day.
So one example, yeah, you have a mechanical heart valve and you need to take blood thinners every day.
And so about half an hour, and one of the things that happens is I at times experience frequent nosebleeds.
And one of the things that happens as a result is that you experience a lot of nosebleeds, or frequent nosebleeds.
And the last time I had a nosebleed, I was in the emergency room twice for hours for them to stop these nosebleeds.
So last time it happened, you ended up in the emergency room twice for a really long time in order to stop these nosebleeds.
So right half an hour before I entered this circle today, my nose started to bleed. And I immediately went back to the last experience of my nose bleeding.
Oh, so yeah, half an hour before the circle started, your nose began to bleed again, and you were taken back to that experience previously.
And it's a really presencing and grounding experience. And so I really, at first, I thought I remembered the challenging experience of being in the emergency room and they're not being able to stop my nosebleed. And I thought, oh my, goodness, what if my nose doesn't stop bleeding?
Mm. Yeah, so this was a very, as you said, presencing experience where you were concerned in the waiting room. The real possibility, what if my nose doesn't stop bleeding? This
Yeah,
was like a wake up for you.
yes. And so I really, you know, had to think about quickly, like, okay, am I going to be able to participate in the circle and, you know, stopping my nose from bleeding and really focusing on myself for a moment? Because I said, I'll stop there.
Yeah, so the thoughts ran through your mind. Am I going to be able to participate in this circle? and you needed to care for yourself, do everything that was necessary to care for yourself in order to get your nose to stop bleeding, presumably.
And in summary, because my time is up, I was able to stop my nose from bleeding, and I made sure that I had a minute or two before I joined the circle to really ground myself, to be mindful, and to let go of that experience, to open myself to be prepared to share in this experience.
So yeah, so you needed a minute or two between sorting that out and making yourself better and starting the circle so that you could ground yourself and mentally prepare to be open to the circle.
Yes. Thank you, Ruth. I feel fully heard.
Thanks. Yeah, so now I need to choose someone. Larry, would you listen, please?
Yes, Ruth, ready.
Cool. So I haven't got a timer. Am I supposed to? Will someone let me know if I'm rambling on?
I'm taking care of the time. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, speaking of before the session, sorry I'm late. I was lying down trying to meditate before the session, and I became very, very sleepy. And then I realised I didn't have the link, so I kind of lost my composure that I had built up in the meditation.
So Ruth, I'm hearing you sharing that, speaking of, the topic of kind of preparing yourself for a circle, like Dwayne was describing, that you were laying down and meditating and being at peace, being kind of one with the infinite universe and perfect peace. And then right before it was time to log in, you realized, I don't have the link. And then this kind of infinite peace was gone with the wind. You didn't say that, but something like that.
Yeah, it was blown. Definitely it was blown. And it's only just now I'm starting to feel a bit more settled. I could hear it in my voice when I was reflecting back Priyanka's what she was saying. I felt a bit of tension there and a bit, yeah.
And after being in the circle for a little while, you're starting to notice this calming down, and you're saying that you could hear it in your voice. And I'm not sure if you were saying you could hear the tension or hear the relaxing in your voice when you were reflecting back, I think, to Priyanka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I could sense the tension. I was practicing self-empathy, sensing where I was tensing up and trying to kind of release it with the breath.
So in practicing the self-awareness, self-empathy, noticing where there's tension, just being aware of that, and then practicing slow breathing and kind of, I think you're saying, watching it melt away, something like that.
Yeah, it's more poetic than I would have. But yes, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you, Ruth. Did you want to stop there? Yeah, I'm hearing you say that you feel fully heard, and you have.
Yeah, it's my time.
Oh, is it your time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the time indication go up.
Thank you.
And so this last reflection, I'm hearing you say something like, sounds like something Rumi would say, or maybe it's kind of poetic, but it's expressing what you wanted to say, and you feel fully heard. Thank you, Ruth. So, Colin, will you be my listener?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Colin. I'm just really enjoying what Ruth was sharing. I can feel that share.
Sounds like you're really enjoying this, and especially what Ruth just shared. You're really feeling it.
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience of, we're kind of making plans for maybe joining a circle. So we'll sit down and get centered.
This is something, a familiar experience for many of us, where beforehand we're trying to compose ourselves.
And then maybe the phone rings, or there's a knock on the door, or there's some kind of interruption to peace.
And then this peace and harmony that we're trying to create is suddenly interrupted.
And I guess that could go all the way up to what we commonly call an amygdala hijack.
So on the level of the brain, this is called the amygdala hijack.
Yeah, it could be just a slight disturbance, or it could go all the way up to the level of what we would commonly call amygdala hijack.
So it could be an amygdala hijack, which is kind of at the top level, or it might just be some kind of slight disturbance.
Right, and so when we're in the amygdala hijack, the prefrontal cortex is really turned way down in its ability to function.
So this other part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex is turned down while the amygdala is turned up.
Right, when the amygdala is turned up, then we're in the fight or flight or freeze, and creative empathy is out the window or gone with the wind.
So when we're in this state of fight, flight, or freeze, it's just really difficult to be empathic.
It's practically impossible to be empathic with ourselves or others or nature.
So you're just clarifying that further. It's almost impossible to be empathic, no matter who it is, with ourselves, with others, or with other living beings.
And then I would include kind of the subset of, well, really it's the same, people within the circle.
And also people within the circle.
Yes. And when a human being is experiencing that amygdala hijack and that consequential lack of empathy.
So when this is happening, when our amygdala is hijacked and we're not able to show empathy.
Right. Then I would say that lack of empathy fosters an allegiance, and I'll stop there.
Okay, so this lack of empathy, it's creating this allegiance, for want of a better word.
Thank you. An allegiance to a hierarchy of power over.
Fostering an allegiance to a hierarchy of power over.
Yes, because in the fear, there's the reflex reaction of survival.
So if this reflex reaction to survive, that comes from the fear.
Right. And that results in the belief that the disconnected self needs to be able to fight or flee from some external threat.
Okay, and that leads us to believe that we need to get away to either fight or to flee in that situation.
Right. And we've only been repeating this for thousands of years.
So this has been going on a long time, many thousands of years.
Thank you.
Bianca held up the timer. I don't know if you saw that.
Thank you,
Larry.
Colin. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I will choose Bianca. Is that okay?
Colin.
So, well, I've been doing a bit of thinking on this before also, and but before I share my thoughts on how we can use this in the circle, I've come up with a new definition for myself, a working definition of what self-empathy may be, and I'm summarizing it as connecting and understanding self through body, heart, and mind.
Yeah, so you've given it some thought, and you've come up with a working definition, which is connecting. Can you help me out again, Colin?
Connecting and understanding self through body, heart, and mind.
Connecting and understanding self through body, heart, and mind.
So first of all, I'd like to go back to what Dwayne was saying about the importance of preparing ourselves and showing, before we go into the empathy circle, by showing ourselves empathy. I think that's a really important practice, and it's something that I'm going to take on in future.
So you really liked what Dwayne said about preparing yourself for the circle, and you're going to practice that in the future.
Because I was just thinking of the time in the circle, but you know, the energy that we bring with us has a real effect on how we show up and whether we are able to be fully present, whether we are able to show empathy for others and for ourselves.
Yeah, so you thought a lot about within the circle, but you never thought about what happens before. But it's really important because the energy that you bring to the circle determines how you show up in the circle and what energy you bring with you.
I've shared what I'm going to say before, but I'll share it once more with this circle, and that is, I had a real need to practice self-empathy as a new person in the empathy circle movement, and that's because I was struggling at the beginning.
Yeah, you were struggling in the beginning, and so you had a real need to practice self-empathy.
I found it difficult to focus and to really reflect back everything that I heard, and these feelings were coming up that I was no good at it.
Yeah, so you found it difficult to focus, and the feeling that came up for you was that you were not good at it.
So this is making it even harder to focus and even harder to reflect back. And by practicing self-empathy, by first of all, validating that feeling. Yes, I'm feeling bad, for want of a better word. That can help me to let go of the feeling, name it to tame it, and focus better.
Yeah, so by validating the feeling, you were able to focus better, because by validating it, it helped you to tame those feelings, those negative feelings.
And I had another experience where I needed to practice self-empathy, and that was when I was in my facilitation training, and I was given a challenge that was beyond what I was expecting and beyond what I was able to cope with at the time.
So you were given a challenge that you could not cope with at the time, and so you had to practice self-empathy there also.
Right. the reason I'm mentioning this is because in that role I was facilitator. And what I'm trying to say is that in all the roles, facilitator, passive listener, active listener, and speaker, there's a need to practice self-empathy.
Yeah, so there's a need to practice self-empathy in all the roles, even as a facilitator.
Mm-hmm. And even when we're not, when we're only the passive listener, it's also an opportunity to practice self-empathy. For example, for example, I may be feeling tired or struggling with my thoughts and feelings, and I can choose to practice self-empathy in that moment, even when I'm just the passive listener.
Yeah, so even when you're just the passive listener, you can practice self-empathy, because in that moment you might be feeling tired or under-resourced.
Right. Yes, and time is up, so I'll leave it at that. I fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Sushila, would you be willing to listen to me?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, self-empathy in the circle, like I really was touched by Dwayne's story and how visceral it was, with the blood, bleeding, the bleeding nose, and the worry about coming to the circle. I mean, I think it's a good metaphor also for how we show up in the circle, like what Colin was talking about.
Yeah, so we were really touched by and thinking about self-empathy, Dwayne's story about his nosebleeds and how that how dealing with that and preparing and getting ready to be present for the circle really touched you and spoke to you.
Yeah, so I think it's a good metaphor for not just like the physical, but also the mental and emotional wounds that we bring to the circle.
So it's a really good metaphor for the whole thing of the emotional and mental and wounds and preparations that we bring to the circle.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe, sometimes I meet people in the circle that I don't like, or they're saying something I don't like.
And sometimes you meet people in the circle that you don't like, or you and it's in front
they're
of you.
saying something I don't like, or they're saying something I don't like.
Yeah, that they maybe you just don't like them, or they're saying something you don't like.
And I don't know the reasons sometimes why I don't like someone. Like it's in the circle, it's too hard for me to analyze why I don't really like someone, but it just happens as a natural reaction to this person.
Yeah, and you don't really know why you don't like who they are or what they said, but it's like a natural reaction.
And I immediately have a judgment in my head. It's like, Priyanka, you're in an empathy circle and you're hating people. Like, what kind of empathy practitioner are you?
And having those thoughts about not liking people or what they're saying, it brings out a self-judgment in you about why are you doing this in an empathy circle.
And then what I do is I start fawning. I mean, this is another one, like Larry was talking about flight and freeze, but there's another thing called fawning, which is like I just pretend to like them and I smile a lot when I actually don't, because I want to be a good person.
And not something it's not exactly fight, flight, or freeze, but it's called something fawning. And that's when you smile and you pretend that you like them and you want to appear to be a good person.
Which is which you can judge how that's going to go, because that's a total disaster if I do that in life, right? I can't pretend for a very long time. The better option would be to become aware of what is this person triggering in me? Why am I feeling this way? Or what am I feeling? Why is this person landing this way in me? And try to sort that within me, because more often than not, it's not about the other person, but it's all about me.
Yeah, and this behavior of fawning and pretending is a recipe for disaster in not only circles but in life. And a better option would be to be more aware of what's going on and what's triggering that in you, and then having some self-empathy to figure what's going on.
Yeah. And the challenge in the circle is to do that, to listen to myself, but also listen to others. And so it's like, where do I put my attention? And I think with practice, I can do both. I think it's possible, but it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, and it's very challenging for you to both pay attention to your inner self and then listen, pay your attention to what people are saying. And it's very challenging, but with practice, you can feel that you're getting more experience doing both. More able.
Thank you, Sushila. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. You're welcome. So it's my turn now. Let's see. I will ask Colin.
Sure. Yes.
All right, thank you. So, okay, let me just compose here. In the circle. I think what I've heard people say, and the preparation is very important for having self-empathy in the circle, so that whatever's, I could kind of clear my mind and become present.
Mhm. So you're just taking a moment at the beginning to compose yourself, and then you actually started talking about how composing yourself is important and having a clear mind and being present.
Yeah, and I guess I've never heard of the word fawning, but I know what that, I've known people, I've done that myself probably in the past. And it made me think about, how I bring myself authentically and honestly to the circle. And I don't have to tell people exactly what I'm thinking, but if I'm aware of it and I'm wondering why I do something or think something, I can bring myself more quickly back to being present.
Okay, so you started off talking about fawning. It's a new term for you, but you could well have done it in the past. And then you talked about just remind me what that was. Sushila?
That when I do something, that it's about being honest with,
Yes.
bringing my authentic self, but I don't want to necessarily tell them what I'm thinking, but I can bring myself back to the present moment by being aware of my own awareness of what I'm thinking.
Okay, thanks for repeating. So yeah, it's about being authentic, being your authentic self, being honest about yourself, and being present and bringing yourself back to the moment. And I think you said before, not necessarily sharing everything about what you're feeling, but being authentic to yourself.
Yeah, and I think, practicing, it takes a lot of practice to both be inside and outside at the same time. And that the more I practice that and outside the circle, when I come into the circle, it becomes a little bit easier.
So this is a practice thing. The more you practice, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the things to be aware of again is the needs. So like in empathy circles especially, if it goes on really long, I can't retain it. So to have people do littler chunks for me is probably having self-empathy and being honest to other people.
Mm. So you have also this awareness of your own needs, you know, that you find it more difficult if what's shared with you is too long, and perhaps an act of self-empathy is to let the other person know that you you need the information in smaller pieces.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Oh yes, sorry, that's me again talking. Okay. I will pick. I'll pick maybe Ruth this time, if that's okay.
I think Edwin
Is
has.
that right?
I
Sorry,
haven't
Edwin
gone
even.
yet on this
I'm
round.
sorry.
So
Sorry about that, Edwin. So yes, maybe just to continue where I was before, and that is that all roles within the empathy circle have a need to practice self-empathy. And I talked last time about the facilitator and the speaker. Maybe I can mention a little bit about the active listener.
okay, so you're saying that in this empathy circle, everyone has a part with self-empathy, the facilitator, the speaker. Now you want to talk about the listener.
Hmm. So yeah, if I'm able to reflect back what the speaker has said, as well as I'd like, then that's a moment where I can practice self-empathy.
Yeah, to reflect what the speaker has said, that in that moment, that's the space to practice self-empathy.
Mm. And so one thing I can do is I can pause and be open and curious to what I'm feeling in that moment, and maybe see what my need is.
So in that moment, you're seeing what you can do is you can pause, you can see what your need is. You can listen and then see what your need is.
Right, and I guess I can also ask the other person to repeat, as I did a moment ago with Sushila when my focus went for a moment.
Yeah, and if your focus goes for a moment, you can just have the person repeat what they said.
Mm. And it's important that I don't judge myself too critically, but rather show understanding for myself.
So instead of judging yourself, you'd like to show understanding for yourself.
Right, that this could happen to anyone and not just me.
Yeah, that you're not alone in whatever is happening.
Mm. And then another opportunity to practice self-empathy for myself as an active listener would be when I'm triggered by something that the speaker says, and in that case I can take care of my my feelings and needs in the moment, and then when it comes to my turn to speak, I can address it.
Yeah, so another thing you can do is if the speaker says something that triggers you, you can see what your feelings and needs are around that, and then share it when it's your turn to speak.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps it could even be the case that I temporarily leave the circle. I mean, that could also be a need that I have.
Yeah, you may have a need to leave the circle, and so yeah, that could be another need to kind of withdraw.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I'd like to say in the role of facilitator and that is that I think it's important for the facilitator to say upfront at the beginning in the guidelines that the importance of what self-empathy, or the importance of self-empathy, and to practice self-empathy in the circle.
And the facilitator could say something about the importance of self-empathy as before the circle starts.
Right. Yes, and yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Priyanka, can we go like an extra 15 minutes for this? We're supposed to end in like 4 minutes. Does that work for everybody? Does that work, Priyanka?
It's okay for me. How about everybody else?
I'm good with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll speak to Dwayne.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. So, in terms of the circle self-empathy, I think it's the speaker has sort of the space for the most self-empathy, in that they connect where they are and they get to share it into the room.
Okay, Edwin, you believe that in the case of self-empathy, as it relates to empathy circles, the speaker, in a sense, sets the tone. The speaker has the most space or the greater capacity for self-empathy in the circle.
Because they get to share, whatever feelings and thoughts or needs or desires, whatever, into the full space, and they get heard by everyone in the room.
Because the speaker is able to share what they're feeling and their thoughts and everything in that moment, and they share that with the rest of the circle or whoever else is in the room.
Yeah, so now I've got the attention of everyone. Right? It's like everybody's listening, sensing into it. I get to sort of explore my thoughts and feelings, and kind of get heard to each other. And there's something, it's something positive. I think that everyone has that chance, that time to be heard about where they are.
And that's one of the things you like about the circle process is the speaker gets to share their feelings and they have everybody's attention in the room. And and it can be a really good feeling, and this is something that's really important in the circle.
Yeah, I think it's something that's healthy, that people have a time and space to share who they are, instead of somebody dominating the whole time and kind of being the one that heard, and then you got to kind of fight for attention. So here you've got your time and space and attention.
Yeah, and it's a really good thing. You believe it's a really good thing for the speaker to have that experience of having the attention of the entire circle of the room, and feeling, being able to know that people are listening to what they have to say, which is very different from many conversations where people are speaking or talking at each other, and the person who's speaking is not experiencing this.
Yeah, so that's like the main attention is on me now, the speaker, but everyone has self-empathy in the moment. Like, while we have both. You're listening to what's going on for me, but you're also, everyone's, I imagine, is sensing into their own body how they are. Thoughts are coming up, feelings are coming up. So we're sort of holding, sort of both.
And you believe that not only does the person who's speaking experience the self-empathy, but also the silent listener, the active listener, that everyone who's helping to hold the space of the circle is sensing their own feelings, and having an awareness of what's happening with their body as the person who's speaking is sharing.
And another aspect that came up was kind of preparing yourself before you come into the circle. One thing we do, like when we're doing conflict mediation, is like a facilitator is going to be going into mediate a conflict. But before they do, they have like an empathy buddy call where they just get heard. So it's like, you know, I can say, oh, I'm going to do this facilitation. I feel anxious. I feel nervous about it. And you have a space to be heard and seen about it before you go into it. And that is very calming and centering and grounding practice.
You also spoke to the idea of preparing before entering an empathy circle. And you shared an experience that you've been involved with, and that's conflict resolution circles. And this idea of having a buddy call for the facilitator prior to the beginning of the circle so that they have an opportunity to share what they're feeling at the moment with someone who's listening. And they can, you know, if they're feeling anxious or whatever their feeling might be, they can let go of this before they enter the space to facilitate the conflict resolution circle.
Yeah, it's very grounding. It's like just being heard by someone else. It sort of grounds you. I feel grounded sort of in my humanity somehow. There's something kind of solid that I'm not as easily kind of triggered or, you know, kind of distracted because I've been heard. Maybe we all have a need to be heard and seen, and then that need is filled and I have more resilience for going into difficult situations.
For yourself, having this process of the buddy call and sharing what's on your mind and your feelings at the moment helps you to feel grounded, helps you to feel more human. And you think this is also a need that everyone has, this need to feel heard, which really is feeling heard, meaning feeling more human, feeling alive. And this is really important for the process of in terms of preparation for a circle.
Yeah, and in the compassion training, it's the core practice. I just finished this. The core practice is meditation. Go off on your own and connect with yourself, which, you know, can be helpful. But with the empathy work, it's more like be in relationship with others and connect to yourself by being heard. So those are, you know, they're both valid, but I think it's what gets missed is this being heard by others and how that really helps you connect with yourself.
It's you wanted to draw a distinction between compassion training and the empathy practice, and in that leading into the compassion training, it's important for the person to go off on their own, to meditate, to connect with themselves and to know where they are within themselves. With the pre-empathy training, the empathy practice is more about our relationship with ourselves and as it relates to other people. And so having this process of being able to share with someone else what I'm feeling, what's on my mind, is the difference. And feeling that connection, not just to myself, but in relationship to other people and how they may be feeling.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Yep, thank you, Dwayne. You want to do any sort of a debrief, Priyanka, like before we have we have about 5-6 minutes or 9 minutes.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody. We can just do pop-up style, maybe 30 seconds. When you came in, you had certain ideas about self-empathy. Did that definition expand as a result of participating in this circle? Did you learn anything new? Would love to hear that. Just a briefly, quick 30 seconds to 1 minute. And we can just do it popcorn style. I'll start with myself. I learned so much. The first thing was that I never ever thought about preparing for a circle, preparing to come into a circle by grounding myself. I think that was something that really added to my understanding of self-empathy, and also this difficulty of being with myself and being with others. and how difficult that is. Yeah. Sushila, would you like to continue?
Well, when I started, it was kind of in theory or talking about it, but listening while we were actually talking and I was talking, I got the idea of how to more apply the self-empathy by expressing my needs, and how this is my, when I'm the speaker, I get to actually you know, the idea of people are listening to me, but then I can just stay attuned to the self-empathy and allow that to I don't know, I just got a richer feeling of how I could be more self-empathic and state my needs when I'm the speaker.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Sure. You know, I think one of the things that I enjoy most about this process is there's always an opportunity for me to learn, to expand and my knowledge and to grow as a person within this short period of time. For me, the question that comes up when it's as it relates to defining self-empathy is it's a different question, and it's really, how do we want to define self-empathy? And I think that's really the important thing, because everything is a construct and we live in a world of constructs. And so I think there's an opportunity to define self-empathy in a way that really is a service to humanity, and and something that we can work with and build upon. So I think for me, that's the real question. Understanding also that everything that I repeat becomes an affirmation. And so how do we what message would we like to share through the process of defining this word, self-empathy? And then the other thing is always the importance of having awareness of how I use language. And it ties into self-esteem and self-empathy, in that I view the world based on my own self-esteem. How I think and I speak about the world is how I experience the world. And so it's really important to have an awareness of how I use language in this process.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank
Colin?
you.
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea to collect ideas from from other people who are familiar with the empathy circle movement, and that we took this out of the small group that we formed, centered around Edwin. I know we're doing great work, but I'm glad that we broadened it out and collected, done this as a piece of research, as it were, and collected other opinions. I've been making some notes as I go along. Yeah, a few things that stood out for me were, for example, Edwin's clarification on the difference between self-empathy and self-compassion. I think I have more clarity on that now. Also what Dwayne was saying about preparing in advance, doing a self-check before we come in to the empathy circle at all. That's an act of self-empathy. What Larry was saying, and I think Sushila as well, about being responsible for our feelings and needs. That we have choice, and yeah, if we need to listen to ourselves and understand ourselves before we can take responsibility and have that choice. And I'm kind of feeling a bit of responsibility at the moment. Like there's a bit of pressure on us to get this right, because we're going to be rolling this out to the empathy circle movement, and I'm glad that we're taking our time with this, and reaching out to other people in the movement as well. So I'd just like to end with that.
Thank you, Colin. Ruth?
Yeah, there's so much. I think I'd just echo what everyone else has said, but also I just feel this is really, I mean, what Edwin said about people getting that attention when they are the speaker, and it's very boundaried, isn't it? It's very like guaranteed. You're guaranteed to get the attention. It's not just like a ebb and flow conversation with friends, which might be more ebb than flow. So that does build resilience. And I'm sort of thinking about the work that you do, Priyanka, with young people. I just think it's really important that, especially if they're not adulting yet, this is such a great skill for them to receive and practice. Yeah, thank you for letting me join
Thank you.
today.
Larry?
Thank you, Priyanka. I made a little bit of notes there. And this final comment, I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing. The whole circle has been wonderful. I wrote down, empathy is true freedom of choice. True freedom of choice. And with that comes responsibility. And then I was contrasting false empathy, or what I could refer to as what Priyanka was talking about, the fight or flight or freeze, which the freezing also includes the fawning syndrome of the amygdala hijack. The fight or flight or freeze is a reflex. It's not a choice. Freedom of choice is empathy. The reflex is not a choice. It's a reflex. And it would lead to what we all know as the Stockholm syndrome, where there becomes a fawning cooperation with a dominator. And that's not freedom. That's not freedom. That's not empathy. So thank you all so much for the circle.
Thank you, Larry. Edwin?
Yeah, I really enjoy this exploration of the topic of self-empathy. I'm really looking forward to next week, continuing it at this same time slot. There's a couple of things. Is one, the exploration of what we mean by empathy, how it compares to other practices, NVC, focusing, the compassion community. And there's a lot of other practices that have sort of a self-empathy component, and then developing some activities too. Like, what are some activities where we can do to practice self-empathy? So yeah, I'm really excited about this whole project. It's part of it, and I'm going to put the link in here for anyone that took notes. You can go into, it's actually in page 2. I've taken some notes too, so you can put any notes that you took, just copy and paste them there. So we have this larger project of defining empathy, and then one of the sessions is going to be on self-empathy. So really excited to kind of explore this topic. So I think it's really important, and I think Colin and Priyanka will be the new Kristen Neffs of self-empathy. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And if you want to discuss more or share more of your thoughts about self-empathy with me, I'm happy to listen to you. You can shoot me an email and we can talk. Thank you so much.
Is there a chance to save the transcript? Because there was some good points, a lot of good points in definitions that were said, and I didn't take notes because that would distract me. So
we're recording this, and then I put this recording into a program that creates automatic transcripts. And so there'll be a page with the recording, these notes, as well as the transcripts, and I'll send that out. And also send out, I've created for the training, we're creating a 7-week training on defining empathy. And I've created the session 1 video for that, and I'll send that out to everyone that you can watch it too. And who can come next week? Just check, right? Oh, yeah, I'll be here. All right.
I'll be here.
Okay, you'll be here. Good. That's so, okay. Yeah. So I'll
All right.
send that out. I've got everybody's
you.
email here. And just to double check, it's your Ruth, I think, is the only one. It's Robin's on Ubuntu, or is that the?
Oh yeah, that's my email.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Then
Yeah.
I've got everybody's
Thank you.
email, so I'll send
Oh,
send
great.
that out to everyone. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.